erasing anything, you're just hiding stuff. And when you hide stuff, you can always show it again. So it's very efficient. You can always go back. If you screw up, don't worry about it. Just clear off all this layer masking and you're back to square one again. It's really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the gradient mask, and I want to make sure this guy, the black, is in the foreground right up in here. And then also one important thing is this guy here defaults to foreground to background. So you're blending the foreground, which is black, into the background, which is white. If you double click on this, you get this guy. Now I want to make sure it's foreground to transparent. It defaults to foreground to background. I want foreground to transparent. Foreground to transparent just gives you a nicer, cleaner blend. So I want foreground to transparent. Now I got it all set up. Now all I'm going to do is just click and drag. I'm going to drag right to the from one point of that segment curve to the other point. Pow. And you see what it does is that it gives you a nice gradient tone up here, and the gradient tone is also reflected up in here. So there you go. There's my gradient. That's step one. Now step two. This gets a little complicated, but that's okay. Step two, what we're going to do is we are going to go back to this layer, and we're going to duplicate it once more. Pow, duplicate it. I'm going to scooch this up to the middle here. That's okay. It doesn't matter if it hides everything or not. You can turn that layer off and on if you wish by clicking on the eyeball. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to double click on this guy. I want to make this guy white. So there it goes, a nice white layer. And what I'm going to do again is that I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to select this, but this time I'm going to pull the control points all the way up and make a nice little sliver, just a sliver all the way around the top here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go in, I'm going to get my pen tool selected, because that's how I select the actual shape layer itself. I'm going to get my option key to get my direct selection. I'm going to click on that line, and there you go. There, that line is set up. So now what I'm going to do is actually click on the bottom, and I'm going to click on this bottom guy right here, and notice how it fills in with black. And I'm going to go whoosh and just bring it right up to the top. Just a sliver, like so. So now you see it's revealing all the stuff underneath. And you may find when you're doing all this stuff, you may find different shapes, different stuff. You might like it. You just may want to leave it as it is. So experiment, and you know, it's some of the coolest things happen just by accident. So what I want to do now is I want to get these direction points, these guys right down here. I want to take these guys and scooch them up. Not how I did before, but I want to actually have this curve mirror that curve, because I'm just making a little sliver, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go in and I'm going to get my convert selection point tool going. So I'm going to hit the option key, mouse over that direction point, click, drag it up, and you see how I drag it, and just play with it and see. I'm just going to try to get a sliver here, just a little sliver, this kind of thing. And this stuff really all depends on how creative or how much of a gloss or shine you want. Right now we're making the highlight. The light is coming from this direction, shining down. Okay, we're going to get a highlight going across here. We're going to get a highlight sheen we're going to put in here later. And this is the shadow because the surface is curved. So then we're going to go over here. Going to go back over to the direction point. I'm going to hold my option key down again, click, and drag it up. Release. I'm just going to click off to see, and there you go. There's a nice curve. Now what I'm going to do is put a gradient mask on this, and I'm going to go back over to the gradient mask tool, the layer mask, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to click on it, pow, puts a mask right in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gradient on this mask, make a gradient mask out of it. So I'm going to click on it. I already have everything set up, all my gradient tools are good. I'm going to click on the gradient tool, which is right over here, and then I'm just going to kind of drag it up, just like so, and play with it and see what happens. If I go and drag it right up to the top, that means the top is 100%, the bottom is 0%, meaning 0, it's totally transparent, 100% meaning it's 100% of the color in there. So right now the color's white, so if I leave it there, you notice how it starts at 0, 0% fill, total transparency, going all the way up to 100% white. And I can go over here in the layers palette, because these are all layers, I can adjust everything. So I can mess with the opacity, I can bring it up, I can bring it down, I can apply different color effects, layer effects to it, depending on exactly what these colors are. Each color behaves differently with the color below it. So there's hundreds of permutations. Trial and error works quite well. So, and I can also go in here, I can Apple T, and I can transform this. Apple T is the free transform tool. I can mess with this. I can bring it all around. I can bring this rotation point down to the center. I can rotate it around this point. So I can go in and I can rotate this tool and it will follow, etc., etc. But I'm happy with where it is, so we'll just leave it there for now. So there you go. So there's, right now, this is what we have. We've got our shadow, we've got our highlight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in our super amazing highlight, which will really make this thing pop. Basically, it's going to be a nice highlight, glossy sheen running all the way through here. So what we're going to do is we are going to go in, and I'm going to take a break because this Photoshop is bugging out. Okay. Anyway, what we're going to do here, I'm actually going to quit Firefox. It's probably a good idea. I'm going to go back in here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our super shiny highlight layer to this and make a nice sheen across everything. I'm going to go to my my master layer. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to bring it right up to the very top, okay, because this is a super highlight layer. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to make it white. Ta-da! It's cool. Now, this is where it gets tricky. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use this layer. This is like my crescent layer, and actually I'm going to kind of hide all the, turn off this stuff off just so you can see. And we're going to use this layer, the shape itself, because this shape itself, we're going to use this as to create a mask for this layer. And I'll show you why this is pretty cool in a second. And we'll just run through it here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn all these layers back on. Turn them all on. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, basically when I hold my cursor over top of the layers panel, it turns into a little pointy finger. If I hold down the option key over top of, say for example, this line, this vector shape, it turns into a little, there's a little box over top of the pointy finger. That box is the selection. It's a make selection icon. So I can make a selection, a custom selection from any shape that I want in Photoshop with the line tool, with anything. This happens to be the vector thumbnail, the actual vector itself. So I'm going to click on that and you'll see the selection shows up right through here. And in Photoshop, like in any image editing software, you have to have it selected. Be there, select a layer, select an object, anything. It has to be selected if you want to apply any treatments to it, any coloring, you want to move it around. You got to select it before you do anything. So we're making a selection right now. So we made this selection. Now this selection, it really depends on what layer it's on. I can apply this selection to any of these layers. That's the cool beauty of this thing. What we're going to do is, because we have the selection here, we can make a layer mask from this selection. So with the selection selected, just like so, I'm going to go down to my layer mask guy. I'm going to click on it, create a layer mask, pow. And you see what it does automatically. It takes that selection and says, alright, selection, we're going to mask everything else and we're going to keep that selection revealed. So what it's doing is it is actually showing this chunk, this piece here, okay, and it's hiding the rest of this. So if I was to go in and change this color, for example, to anything, okay, I change this to black. This layer mask, that white in the middle, that white is the area that's showing. That white is this black down here. The entire rest of this thing is being hidden. It's hiding the rest of the black. Here's the thing. I'm going to change this back to white because that was just for an example. What I want to do is I want to have the white up on top because the white is my highlight. The white is my shine, right? I have shadow down here in the bottom. So obviously if there's shadow in the bottom, there's white on top, vice versa. It's very hard to have shadow and highlights on the same spot. Some strange lighting effects going on there. So what we want to do is we want to invert this layer mask real easy. All you do is you select it like that, you get this guy, and you see there's little squares whenever I hit a thumbnail. You see how you got these little squares pop up, like picture frame these things? If I click that one, it selects the actual layer mask, etc., etc. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click on that and I'm going to go Command I. Command I is inverse, and inverse is it just flops it. It says, okay, whatever is black,